Hello, my name's Bev and I'm the author of the book Please Eat, A Mother's Struggle to Free Her Teenage Son from Anorexia, which describes our family's battle with the deadly eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, which my teenage son Ben developed back in 2009 when he was just 15 years old. This is the first blog post from May 2011. And it's from the 2nd of May 2011, and it looks at something quite interesting, which is how to cope with situations where the routine suddenly changes for some reason. In this case, it was because my husband's grandfather passed away, and we had to go down to see his folks for the funeral down in the south of England. And this, of course, created some problems for how Ben was going to cope with eating down there as opposed to at home where everything was pretty much routine. So this post is from the 2nd of May 2011 and it's called A Bit of a Gap Since the Last Blog Post. Bit of a busy week, what with all the Easter bank holidays, then the royal wedding and bank holidays again. During this time I've managed to injure my hip somehow. Been busy with work too, which isn't easy when you have a short week due to bank holidays and are also in great pain. Then over the Easter weekend, my husband's granddad passed away, so we're all off to London next week for the funeral. And meanwhile, the family fights over what they should have at the funeral, etc. Me, I keep well out of it. Thankfully, everything is still going fine with Ben's recovery and he's back at school after the Easter break. And I insisted on a permanent increase in daily calories at CAMS on Wednesday when it was found out that Ben had lost weight by almost the same amount he put on last month. Thus far, he has kept to this increase, but there may be a spanner in the works when we go to London at the weekend. Unfortunately, my husband's family are quite disorganised when it comes to doing things, which includes meal times, a potential disaster area with someone with anorexia. My husband has taken Ben to visit his parents twice since the onset of the illness, and both times it's been a total disaster. They rarely have standard meal times as such, eating as and when they eventually get around to it, and often deciding to eat out instead or get a takeaway, which resulted in some particularly stressful occasions last summer. I strongly believe there is the potential for Ben to lose more weight over this coming weekend. At least I will be there this time, armed with my calculator to check he's as close to target as possible. Not easy though when there are no planned meals as such, and I'm not really sure how to handle that, especially with all the emotions and potential fighting over the funeral. I wish Ben and I could stay at home. I was really praying he'd have some exams or something that would prevent us going, but unfortunately not. The next CAMS session is on Friday, but the next time they weigh Ben will be next Friday. I may blind weigh Ben here before we go to London and on our return, just to check there's been no damage caused over the weekend. Even though Ben continues to recover in his mind, he is still at an unhealthy low weight and cannot afford to lose any more. He cannot afford for his BMI to go any lower than it is. I need to come up with a plan B for if it becomes obvious that Ben is not eating sufficient over this weekend, 3 days away from home, and I need to talk this through with him so we know exactly what we are doing. Last summer, a plan B of this nature wouldn't have worked, as Ben would really have actively resisted, but this time there is a chance it might work. I've got a very busy week work-wise with the added stress of having to get ready to go to London and sort out plan B, etc., not to mention the hip pain. And this is from the next day, from the 3rd of May 2011, and it's called Okay, so plan B, and now plan C for the weekend is I've been mulling over the problem of my husband's family's haphazard attitude to meal times, coupled with the problem of not being at home with our usual eating regime this weekend, and this is the plan I propose to put forward to Ben. That we take the breakfast and pudding ingredients with us, cereal, bread, jam, cake, biscuits, etc. This way we know approximately how much he should be having for lunch and the evening meal. If it's lunchtime and no move is made by the family to eat, we will head to the supermarket and pick up a sandwich or similar. In the evening, Ben will eat the equivalent of our usual evening meal, which will hopefully take place, plus the pudding we've brought. On the journey there, we will stop off for lunch at a service station, Marks and Spencer's, so Ben gets his calories, ditto, on the return journey. Hopefully this should solve the problem of Ben reducing his intake over the weekend and losing weight. And in the event that he does lose weight, we have agreed that remedial measures will be taken in terms of adding calories to the contract. Sorted, providing Ben agrees. Postscript. He won't play ball, so plan C, agreed with Ben, is to weigh him before we go and when we return. If he's lost weight during this time, then we will increase the calories in the run-up to the CAMS weigh-in session on the Friday. That's the trouble with this illness. What seems like a logical solution to a problem actually isn't in practice. Sometimes thinking creatively helps, but other times it doesn't. You might wonder why I don't put my foot down and enforce this, but I know from experience that this doesn't work with Ben. It can actually have the reverse effect. And the eating disorder angst is the last thing we want in a household charged with negative emotion this weekend. Boy, people who claim to be excellent problem solvers on job application forms have nothing on the experience of a parent of an anorexic teenager. You become an expert at finding practical, workable solutions for the most complex and unsolvable problems, only to find they don't work in practice due to the illogical nature of eating disorder thinking. So you think again and again. Ben has promised to ensure he has sufficient to eat in any one day. As this is quite vague, I will be ultra vigilant, and meanwhile we will try to think of other solutions. To normal people, I might sound as if I'm making a massive mountain out of a tiny molehill, but from experience I know how quickly an anorexic can lose weight and how potentially dangerous this can be and how many calories they need to have to prevent this from happening. And believe me, it is a lot. And that's the end of that second blog post. I'm not sure whether it was this particular trip to London or not, when someone in the family said, "Don't worry, we've got loads of salad specially for Ben," as if, well, what can I say? As if that would be the answer, the solution to the problem of getting Ben to cope with eating when we were staying with them. And it just shows how so many people, even people within your own family, do not understand the complexities and dangers of an eating disorder. Just like we didn't at the start. We knew nothing, absolutely nothing, and that's probably something we would have suggested had we known that someone with an eating disorder was paying us a visit. So anyway, I hope that these two posts will help anyone trying to work out what on earth to do when out of the blue they're suddenly catapulted away to a different location and a different routine like we were because of the family funeral. Anyway, thank you for listening. You'll find a link below to my blog And you'll also find a link to my website where you can download free PDFs of my blog, and also a link to Amazon where you can buy a copy of my book.